And my hunch is that the vast majority of people, the vast majority of content creators are super likable and have that ability to have soul. It's just when you are in a public setting or you're putting yourself in front of camera, like the natural response is to like, I'm just going to give the information because I'm scared of like exposing myself in any way. And that's completely understandable and completely human to feel. But I really think a big part of success for a lot of creators is because they've gotten comfortable enough, whether it's just through repetitions on camera, whether it's through like just their upbringing or whatever, but they're okay with being them.
Powered by the Ocrio.
I'm glad. I always love when you find tools, and I love when, like as a person, you find tools on the early level of their like development or like life cycle, because then everything's nice and cheap. But you know, as soon as Card becomes like a 40% market share owner, they're like, all right, so it's $100 a year, or like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's bro. That happened with freaking Storyblocks. I don't know if you know about Storyblocks. Did I tell you about this already?
Yeah, I remember you talking about you used it early, like 3-4 years ago when you were just starting up your channel.
Yeah. So that was my main source of B-roll. Like I didn't shoot, right? Bro, I love Storyblocks. If Storyblocks had like, I would have paid Storyblocks to be their sponsor. I love them so much. So good. And then one day I see my account is like, oh, you need to update your information. I was like, oh, okay, no problem. I take my money, Storyblocks. And then I go, and not only have they increased the price by like triple, they also completely changed around the pricing structure. So it wasn't like, so I used to pay a set amount for unlimited video, right? And then you needed to pay extra if you wanted sound and other stuff. And I was like, I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
But now it's like you pay a set amount and you get 10 things for the month. And I was like, yeah, not even unlimited, just 10 things. And the amount that I was paying was triple what I used to pay. So I was like, they really went the Adobe route. So I had to cut Storyblocks off. But I ended up realizing there's a lot of free B-roll sites through that. So it was ultimately a good financial thing.
Yeah.
But it was just frustrating. I was like, that was a big Anakin moment from them. You know, it was like, you were the chosen one, loved you. It's absolutely violated.
Storyblocks is like, actually credits. You have credits now. You leave the arcade once you're done playing. No more unlimited tokens.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's like, I wonder what motivates that, because that had to be a huge value point for a lot of the people that were using it. And like, I would hope they crunch the numbers before doing that of like, okay, well, we're going to keep this percentage of our user base and it's going to convert to this much more money for us per month, but we're going to lose X number of people.
Yeah. My dad and I were talking about that. And if they didn't, that's wild. That's like, that's a big rookie mistake.
But just rolling the dice.
Yeah. They're like, I don't like this. we're gonna redo this.
Run the credits.
Yeah. Like that's crazy if not. But I think you're spot on. They were like, you know what? We might lose, 30% of the people, but if we're going to triple the price, we're going to make more money, that kind of thing. So
got to turn the profit. Do you use I know I use Pexels for a lot of stock imagery. Okay. And I think they have video too, right?
Wait, you said Pexels. Did you say something else too?
I just said Pexels, but I've used Pexels.
Pexels I use for video as well, yeah.
There's another one that does free video or royalty-free, like free stock video. And I'm completely blanking on it right now. Pexels is the go-to.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Oh, that's gonna bother me now. I gotta look it up. The other one is Videvo, Videvo.
Oh yeah, I've read about that one, but I never checked it out.
Most of the stock imagery stuff that I've ever found is just Googling like free stock video. I think there was one service for a little while that had like maybe it was Storyblocks actually, had like a free tier for a while, or it was like a free trial period.
It did. It like you like do 5 a month or something. Like
that sounds familiar. The other stock media that I've found recently that's like really high quality, and the price point is really nicely positioned because it's just high enough that I'm like, I will unsubscribe from this if I'm not using it, but I will stay subscribed the second I need it once per month. And I'll buy their unlimited tier is Epidemic Sound. Have you seen them? Have you used them before?
Yeah, once. Okay. I did like the free trial thing.
As somebody who has made sync music before, I'm like, this is high quality music. Like
it's crazy.
And for the price, like this isn't even one micro licensing fee, because I know what those rates have been as the person making it, right?
Yeah. Just like you said, I've considered getting into Epidemic Sound because like as a paying customer, obviously, because what I use is like YouTube Studios create a bank of music.
Okay.
And it feels stock, you know what I mean? But Epidemic Sound feels composed, right? It's like, oh, like we made this. Sure, you might hear it in YouTube videos, but it's good music. So yeah, I just, something about me has an aversion to paying for like add-ons to make videos better. You know what I mean? Because like I'm like, I know I have a lot of space to improve when it comes to my storytelling or how I deliver things or like how I select B-roll shots. And it's like I almost feel like I'm just running to the easy option. I'm like, oh no, it's the music for sure. That's why I you know. But I think as soon as I start getting into more like story-based content, Epidemic Sound is probably gonna be a go-to.
I know what you mean about like music that sounds very like stock style, because I think as somebody who like has a little bit of musical knowledge, a lot of stock music is just a loop that builds in some way, where it literally like you can Lego step it up as to how it's progressing. Whereas the music that I found in sound libraries like Epidemic and other like Storyblocks, I think had this too for a while, is it's much more composed, where there's actually an arc and like a narrative that the music is telling, which lends to that like building up of a narrative with your content, right?
You just made me want to check out how much it costs.
Well, the good news is you can use affiliate code.
I was imagine. It's like, I was gonna say the Tim Ferriss thing is like we have a whole podcast talking about Epidemic Sounds, and we just pitch it to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll sponsor it," and we come in and in the edit fix it back up.
It's true though. Like it's to the point now where when I'm watching, especially like a highly produced piece of content, or like a movie, or like even a YouTube video by like a very popular creator, if there's a logo visible, I'm not sure if that's intentional or if it's just like, oh yeah, we're not taping over our logos because the brands are happy to have us like accidentally expose an Apple logo or this logo or that. Like,
yeah,
you know the water company Liquid Death?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay, I guarantee you, if I showed you a can of Liquid Death, you would recognize it, because it was a very well pulled off, and I have to imagine that they intentionally did this. They placed Liquid Death water cans in the backgrounds and like the sets of a lot of podcasts. Like I remember, I think
I've never seen this, by the way, but keep going.
You haven't seen it? Okay, interesting.
No.
Cody Ko and Noel Miller, like the TMG podcast, they had it for a while. And I think a lot of like content creators that were adjacent to them also had it for a while. But there was never any attention drawn to it. It was just like, oh, here it is on the side of the table. We're going to drink it while we record the show. To the point where I was like, oh, they just really like Liquid Death water. And then I started seeing it where the logo was always facing the camera, and I'm like, that's intentional. Like there's no way that gets put down perfectly every time without somebody doing that intentionally. It's just like there's not where there used to be like a line of like, oh, this is clearly like advertorial content or native advertising. Now it's like the line is so blurred, right? Where you can slip something in and like add it to a video or a post or something, and the line between talking about a product because you like it and talking about a product because you're getting paid to, it's very hard to differentiate, to the point now where we joked about this forever, like with Notion. I was evangelizing Notion to everybody that I knew because I loved it, but it sounded like I was getting paid to place the product in like, every conversation. I feel that way about Card right now. And it's like, that's, I guess, as a brand, that's the thing you want, right? You want your product to be so good that people recommend it without
just straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the best word of mouth you can get. I think the thing I'm saying is like people's ability to convincingly do that even when they're getting paid to now it's very hard to discern, right?
Don't you think that's like the TMG thing, right? Isn't that kind of messed up? Because I feel like there is a established standard when you are paid to do something for a brand, right? It's like, oh, by the way, this video is sponsored by Notion. This video, blah, 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 right? Check our promo code. But it feels kind of exploitative,
Okay.
To not even have a mention of it, I don't know. Something about that feels wrong where it's like, because not on a level, they are literally, like you said, they're putting the can down in a special way. They're thinking and playing mind games to affect how you're gonna act, right? So it is, I don't know. It's definitely on that blurry line, but I disagree with that. I don't like that they do that. But I think on the same note though, there's, like I said, the line is blurry. Because what I do for what we're doing, when a brand pays me to advertise their event, like I still put like the sponsored label that Instagram allows me to do. TikTok, they don't have that, so I can't do it. But either way, I can see the average user being like, oh, he's just talking about an event that he thinks is cool, And I guess for me, I rationalize it as my whole goal is to advertise events. I do it even when it's not being paid. So it's okay. But then again, I could see someone being like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. He got paid to promote this event and like have us think it's on a certain level. So yeah, I guess it's better to not think about it too much,
Yeah, I hear you, man. I completely understand where you're coming from. And I feel like I could make the case too. Like having that clear delineation is actually really important because it helps like I think you're saying, when somebody's being paid to evangelize versus evangelizing because it's just good. And that's, as a consumer, I think that like almost steps into, and I think this is part of what you're saying too, like it kind of steps into that consumer protection area of marketing where it's like, no, like just as easily as somebody could do that with a water company, they could do it with something else that maybe is more destructive or has the potential to be.
Oh yeah.
So no, I agree that I think having a gray area there is not always to the benefit, and actually probably if you were to weigh it, right, the benefit to the risk is probably higher than the benefit. I'd be curious to know, like, what are your thoughts on stuff like guerrilla marketing, right, where it's people distributing marketing materials without ever even announcing that it's marketing materials, like putting stickers in places or distributing flyers without, well, I guess flyers are hard because that's inherently a marketing material, right?
Yeah. I think so. Like you said, stickers, flyers, maybe like graffitiing a bridge or like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. To me, that's fine. That's like completely in the green zone because on a certain level, not on a certain level, right? Just in general, I see that it is clearly advertising a brand. My first assumption is going to be that brand paid money or did the thing to get that there, right? I wouldn't be like, wow, Banksy cared about that so much. That's crazy. Like, that he needed to graffiti this. So I guess the thing is, when it comes from somebody you trust, like TMG is, right? It just feels like a betrayal of that trust when it's not exposed. Like, let me switch it a little bit. If the whole time when you had been talking about Notion, you were secretly paid by Notion, like I'd feel pretty fucked up about that. I'd be like, wow. So like, I was just a number, It wasn't like you didn't care about the product so much or like how much it helped. I just happened to be, part of the MLM, right? So yeah, like I guess that's the thing. It just feels like there's a level of trust or likability of the creator that they are using to get a monetary benefit, or at the very least the brand is using to get a monetary benefit, and then the creator's not like making that known, is kind of letting that happen. So
there was some video that was like making the rounds, and it was like how I made a commercial for this brand, like a big brand, and then realizing that the company had sponsored or paid the person, or probably, again, like this is where it gets really gray. There was no confirmation, but it's like, how'd you have a bigger camera crew to fill the behind the scenes than for the commercial itself, right? Like the behind the scenes video felt more produced and polished and like well put together as a storytelling thing than the actual commercial did. And I would never see the commercial, right? Because like I think a lot of people have, I have ad blocker on YouTube, and generally I don't watch ads unless, or if I can skip an ad, I won't watch it.
Of course.
But I'm happy to watch a video of a creator talking about their process. And oh man, it's a process that leads to, me having a positive sentiment about this company that I wouldn't have cared about otherwise.
It's a cool thing, like from a marketing point of view, because, I love this kind of stuff, that a brand has that opportunity to push those levers that you ordinarily won't. Like, Tide is not going to make you feel the story process, or like how this creator felt when he had a problem trying to film the commercial and then he overcame it and all this kind of stuff. So it's cool that they can do that, but it's kind of like, yeah, just because we can, should we, I feel like that's a big thing for our generation, our like period of the world right now. It's like, there's a lot of options that we have as humans with the technology and like things we've learned about psychology and, tech and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, should we though? Like AI, like we were talking about. It's like, yeah, like the tech is there. We're going to get there eventually. Eventually, you're not going to be able to tell if you're talking to a person or a computer. Probably very soon, to be honest. And it's like, are we like ready for those ramifications? So, yeah.
Let's say in theory, we've been hired or you've been hired, and I'm your assistant. I'm teeing them up, right?
Okay, sure.
To do a marketing campaign for like not a big brand, but like a small creator or something. How can like smaller creators use these tools in a positive way or in an outright open way, and being like, hey, like here's what we're doing, but we're going to tell you that we're doing it, and we're still going to give you a really great experience with it,
I don't know if it's the smaller creator's responsibility to be better than a bigger company, right? Like it feels like when the US and Europe is like clutching their pearls when India is like burning fire to like warm their houses or to just develop. It's like, you guys been doing it for a minute. It's like you can't be upset when, the other people finally get to a level. So it's, I guess to me, I don't necessarily have a problem with small creators doing it. In fact, I probably prefer it more because that's money going to somebody who needs it more, most likely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard to give a concrete example. I would say, for the most part, like we were talking about like at the start of this, is like, you kind of just need to watch what they are doing, the bigger people, the more established people, and then put enough of a spin on it. Or well, first just try that and then put smaller and smaller spins on it until it becomes its own unique thing. So like the Tide commercial, right? The person making their process. Let's say you are give me a common, like a, job that you would exemplify the creator you're talking about. Or
let's say you have a small film, right?
You have a small film. Well, right. I mean, like then you can say, you can kind of flip it on its head, and instead you're advertising you as a filmmaker, but you're using the brand's name. So it's like, I made a Coca-Cola inspired horror movie, for instance. Then you are like, you're using the brand's clout, using their recognizability. Other people are gonna be like, oh yeah, like, what is that gonna look like? And then, but like, you're showing your process, you're showing something a lot more authentic than the reverse, right? So, I mean, that's one way to kind of clout shark and use people's names or use businesses' names, which is, I feel like that's a good way to do it. But I mean, there's probably countless other ways.
This is just reminding me of something. Have you seen the videos of like artists being like, oh, I redesigned this company's logo, and they post it?
Yeah.
That sounds like very similar to what you're talking about, where it's this like you said, using, and I love the way you described it, like you're using the brand name to kind of like hop on that interest, that audience of interest, and develop your content kind of underneath so that people are like, oh, this was cool, but I care about it because of the person that made it, not because of the brand that they did it for.
Yeah. And to take it even further, have you seen the TikTok of the girl who remakes logos, but she makes it shitty? Like, have you seen that?
Yes, and it's funny because I just saw it for the first time yesterday.
Oh, okay,
I think on LinkedIn. Like somebody reposted it to LinkedIn, which I don't think is easy to do. Like I don't know that TikTok.
They tried.
Yeah, they had to put some work in to get it there. Yeah,
that's one of the techniques small creators should use. Just get your friend to plan videos on LinkedIn, especially if they work at Deloitte with 1,000 employees. Like, I mean, that's what I was talking about. Where there's some creators who remake the logo, right? There's some creators who remake it but make it futuristic. But then there's some who like take it 3 steps forward, 4 steps forward, and then make it into, I'm going to remake it, but I'm almost putting negative effort, like I put effort into the opposite direction. I'm making this as bad as I possibly can. And I think that's such a cool spin on it. So yeah, and I think like last time I checked, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but I remember seeing her page first and it was like, Xbox is in love with me or something was like one of her profile message. And it turns out like Microsoft kept sending her like the Xbox One and like all their promotion products ever since she did the logo for them. And that's a tricky thing because she always like unboxes them and she's like, oh, Microsoft send me another thing. But now I'm like, wait, was this a sponsorship? Like, I don't know. Cause she presents it as like, oh, Microsoft did it again. But now I have no clue. So that's, yeah. So I was going to go to a different topic. So if you're going to continue this one, maybe you should go.
I'm curious as to where you're going to go next.
So as someone, I would say like the way I look at social media and marketing is very academic / analytical, right? I try to break things down. I try to understand what I'm doing, the steps that I make. But the more and more I see people on like social media, I get the sense, or it feels like some people, the people who are almost the most famous, don't look at it like that at all. Like the girl I'm talking about, right? The Xbox's crush. It doesn't feel like she thinks through her videos. Not to say that it's bad, but it's like she doesn't like, I'm going to do this video because I've seen this result. Like she just kind of posts about her life. She's like, oh, it seems like I just want to make something that's fun. I just want to do this. And it blows up. And I kind of wonder if, well, one, maybe she doesn't think too much about the sponsorship thing. She's just like, yeah, Xbox sent me a thing. I'm going to shoot a video. Like, it doesn't matter what the return for me is. Although, granted, once you have millions of TikTok followers, I feel like you should know something about sponsorships and that kind of stuff. But it also makes me think, and there's a bigger thing. This is something I've been trying to add more into the things I put out, is a level of freedom, a level of, I call it soul in the brand, right? Like the brand of me, the brand of the side hustle, what we're doing. And it's like that feeling of, yes, academically driven, yes, analytical, but instead of like 90% academic, 10% have fun, it's 60-40 or maybe 40-60 the other way. So I've been trying to, plan things where I'm just talking about me, or I, in the script, I might just say my honest feeling about something. Like yesterday, I went to an event and I shot video for it and I wrote the script for it today. And in the event, I got invited to the VIP section because a guy recognized me. That I didn't get to tell you, but that was a big like, oh shit. But yeah, in the video, previous to this thought, I might have just said like, oh yeah, and we went in the section and like this happened. But now I'm like, in the script and I just said what I felt. I was like, it's kind of crazy that people recognize me enough to think I'm a very important person. And that's thanks to y'all watching. So I appreciate that, And I feel like I imagine that will be appreciated. Who knows? Maybe I get back and be like, shut up. But I think that is probably the ideal way in my head right now of being a creator, where it's like a content creator, that is, of any type. It's like, have fun, be yourself, although that's like super like cliche of a advice by at this point, but still have it guided by thinking and trying to understand the platform and make reasoned decisions. But like having a level of freedom. So
what you just described is something that's really important and something that I'm only just starting to like see as valuable as making content myself. And I think it's really interesting that you brought that up as the change of topic, right? Because I was watching Michael Reeves videos yesterday and very much content that stands as successful, right? Like dude does not have an upload schedule.
Fuck no, he doesn't. Jesus, I've been waiting for a video for years.
Like, breaks every rule or almost every rule of like being a successful content creator by looking at the YouTube videos on how to be a successful content creator, and yet he uploads something and within 2 weeks it has millions of views, right? Which isn't to say that there's not value to being consistent. Like I think if you look at like Mr. Beast, that's kind of the extreme case of what it means to be really diligent with content creation. But I think to reconcile what you're saying with some of the stuff that I was thinking last night, like one of the things that I really like about watching Michael Reeves content is it's very spontaneous. And it seems like he's just playing around with ideas and you're seeing that process unfold very naturally to the point where if he were to organize it and structure it and make it less chaotic than it is, and it's really chaotic, I feel like there's so much, what you've just said is so valuable because like there is something to be said about having a plan. And then there's something to be said about being able to abandon the plan at any point during the making of a piece of content to make it more interesting and be more authentic in how you present what you wanted to say in the way that maybe you didn't know you wanted to say it. Like, I don't know if this happens to you, and I'm curious, does this happen to you? Where when you're filming, do you have like some stiff takes and then you have to, like, then you loosen up and you have more relaxed, like authentic recordings? Because that's how it works for me. Like when I get in front of the camera and I start recording, it's terrible. It is garbage for the first like 10 to 15 minutes. To the point where I could probably program my camera to delete the first 15 minutes of a recording and I would lose nothing. It's that predictably bad for the first 10 to 15 minutes. And then something happens where it's not that I stop caring. It's that I get through all the things I thought I was supposed to say. And what remains are the things that I actually want to say. And that's when the outline of the video becomes helpful because it's like, okay, now I just have a checklist to make sure I've gotten everything. But the way that I'm presenting it is much more natural. And the more I think about it, the more I realize I do that with music too. I'll sit down and be like, oh, I'm gonna write this song about this thing. And as soon as I've gotten all the lyrics out that I thought I had to write and gotten all the instrumental out that I thought I had to make, normally now I will scrap the first hour's worth of work and almost completely restart. And then build on top of that into something that sounds much more like something that I'm comfortable sharing. Right. And like the stuff that I release now that I can make in one sitting, that's because I'm okay. I'm like, yeah, this first hour of work just needs to go in the trash. It serves no other purpose than getting out of the way. It's like defrosting your creative muscle or something. There's a metaphor there that I'm like I almost have. It's like you're scraping off you're cleaning off the lens, right? That's what it feels like. But I think what you've just said about play and or not about play, you didn't say play. You said about, soul, making content that has soul and just is a true representation. That's very much a skill that I am learning. Really cool that you bring that up because it jives really well with a lot of stuff that I've been feeling recently about making content too.
I have a couple of things because I've been noting down things you've said so I didn't forget it. Yeah. I want to give you the advice for the warming up for the video stuff. Well, first of all, I thought it was really cool, really interesting about the music when you wrote it, how you kind of scrapped the first part, the first hour, and totally get the metaphor. It's like warming up for an exercise, right? Like the same way you need to do a little bit of a stretch before you hit your PR. You kind of need to get the gunk out from the brain before you can get the good stuff down. So I've been a super big fan of, and this has helped me like break through a lot of writer's block of just like word vomiting shit. Like I would just turn on my text to speech or speech to text on my laptop, and I'm just like, yeah, so I think this is what I'm talking about Hanlon's razor, and I'm like da 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 da, and I talk for like 10 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, this paragraph is good, everything trash, everything else, yeah, and then we can start. So it seems very similar. So it's cool that we on the same page with that. For the advice for the video, once I have my outline, this is what I've always done, and this has helped me get rid of cold takes. I take the outline and I look at my camera. I don't turn on the camera, but I kind of go through the outline like that, straight up warm up.
Okay.
Then an interesting thing that I've discovered from shorts and short form videos is I like to make the shorts loop, right? And how you do that is you basically you say you have a full sentence at the end of your video, right? Let's say it's because I want to go to the beach. That's the sentence. And you'll cut the video at because, and then I want to go to the beach would be the start, the new hook, right? Okay. And that's how you make it loop. So this goes in the front, and then it'll just read because I want to go to the beach, and it'll restart. That has got me into the habit of filming the end of the video first. And what I've seen is because that like warms me up, and like it also, because I know I feel like I need to get up a little bit. I'm like, oh, because I want to go to the beach. By the time I get to the actual start of the video, I'm ready. So maybe that's something you could try. Just get your last couple paragraphs out and then go into the start. My last thing, I'm sorry for the soapbox, but
bro, no, please keep going. This is all super valuable.
I appreciate that. So on the soul thing, the thing of soul in content, right? When you talk about Michael Reeves, I think he is a phenomenal example. And I feel like not just in so much things scream, for lack of a better word, what I'm calling soul in this. Like you told me about his editing strategy, how he he goes through the process, he builds a piece of the thing, records it, then puts that in Premiere, saves it, starts, and keeps going. So the whole process is like genuinely authentic and like takes the editing process into consideration in that authenticity. So that's really cool. But I think a big thing about Michael Reeves, and a big thing I feel like a lot of people can capitalize on, is he's super likable. And what is fascinating about Michael Reeves is he is not likable in the traditional sense, right? Like if you were like, when I think charismatic, confident, funny person, Michael Reeves may not be who you think, right? Like he has a very unique and quirky brand of humor and like how he says things and how he acts with the world. And like it, sometimes it's kind of weird, but it's weird. And it's weird, but it's good weird because he's like being himself, right? And my hunch is that the vast majority of people, the vast majority of content creators are super likable and have that ability to have soul. It's just when you are in a public setting or you're putting yourself in front of camera, like the natural response is to like, I'm just going to give the information because I'm scared of like exposing myself in any way. Because, it's one thing to get critiqued for like your music or, some thoughts that you had on a YouTube video. It's another thing to be like, yeah, that Isaiah guy, I hate his laugh, or, I hate his humor is trash, and that's completely understandable and completely human to feel. But I really think a big part of success for a lot of creators, a lot of that success is because they've gotten comfortable enough, whether it's just through repetitions on camera, whether it's through like just their upbringing or whatever, but they're okay with being them. I'm not saying everyone can reach that level of you're so interesting, no one cares about the content. But I have a hunch there's a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of potential. You might be able to drive 100%, but you can maybe get up to 70. And that could be the difference between nothing and success, right?
A massive multiplier for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It seems related to like the fear of public speaking that people tend to have, right? It's that same idea of like, well, if I play it safe and I just get up and do my thing and present the thing that I'm supposed to do and just work my way down the list, then nobody can be mad at me. It's like, well, maybe, but also nobody can really see you as, being really having a strong personality in some way or another, right? So by playing it safely, you reduce the risk, but you also reduce the upside.
Yeah. So I was definitely going to say, I don't even think the camera is the issue. I think not even just in public speaking, I think in day-to-day life, normal day-to-day life, we don't live as authentically as we might want to, right? Mm-hmm. I know this is something I get a lot, and I'm aware of the problem. So I definitely know that other people are doing it more. But I would get this gut feeling, and I'm getting a little more receptive to it, of like, it would be cool if I did that. It would be cool if I complimented that person. It would be cool if I just, like waved around and danced to this music or whatever. It would be cool if I do whatever, right? But, there's these like restrictions on us. And I feel like a lot of people, whether it's they're talking to their family or their friends or whatever, they don't really let go the inner them, right? And like I'm saying, the likable them, the them they kind of want to be, the them that other people want to watch or like pay attention to, both in real life and online. And that's something that I'm trying to learn more. And like I was telling you this when we were talking about the small talk book. Like, in conversations, I used to hold myself back from a lot of things I wanted to say or I could say because of what the person might think. Like, I don't want to mention that I graduated with honors at a top school or whatever. Like, I don't want them to think I'm flexing or whatever. Or like, I don't want to mention my YouTube channel or that kind of stuff. And I've been getting slowly out of that, but we're too scared to be us, I feel like.
You mentioned you want to talk about ChatGPT, and I'm very curious to talk about this. So please, you had something you want to bring up.
So it's more of a question prompt for you. You mentioned how like it's getting easier and easier to just hop into ChatGPT, right? And be like, oh, brainstorm this. But I'm wondering, and I'd love to know what you think from your perspective. Is it dangerous? Dangerous feels excessive. Is it bad for your creativity long term to have that ability, right? Because the example I'm thinking of is now when I need to go somewhere, I always use Google Maps, right? And it's become kind of a default where I'm like, oh yeah, like go into the place, name of the place, type it in. But there was a time where, well, one, I knew more street names. I just had that knowledge better in my head. And two, I felt like my spatial awareness was better when it comes to the city I'm in or the area I'm in. And the Google Maps thing has kind of turned off my brains, like the areas in my brain for that. It was like, oh, we need to go to a place. No, we don't need to remember all the complex, like where this intersection is and where that block is. We're just going to use the maps. So I was wondering if you think a similar thing might happen for you and for people with ChatGPT and other stuff like that.
I think there's a lot of different ways I could go with an answer. You mentioned creativity, which I want to address, but I want to start with like a general answer because I think there's a general layer that needs to be addressed before going into the creativity aspect of it.
Okay.
One of the things that I think about when I think about Google Maps, when I think about any sort of tool, I can say this about phone numbers, right? Smartphones, contacts, lists in your phone, is AI, like any other tool, provides a layer of abstraction. So in the same way that your smartphone abstracted away the need to memorize most phone numbers, or Google Maps abstracted away the need to memorize routes and street names and even orientation within a city and the ability to find landmarks and all these other things, I think AI is going to abstract away certain things that we're not fully seeing yet, but I think it feels like a pretty safe bet to say that it will abstract away certain things that will become just skills that we don't have as well in the future. In the same way that, just to give one more example, like, looking up a reference in the library is something that I think everybody could have done 30 years ago or 20 years ago. Now I research things all the time online. I could not describe in detail the Dewey Decimal System to you right now if I had to.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a technology previously that we had that allowed us to do something, and now there's a better way to do it, or a different way to do it that's more efficient, right? Maybe not better. I think that's an important thing to remember. So AI is going to do that. And I don't know yet how it's going to do it, but I feel very confident saying that it's going to do it in some ways. One thing that I've noticed, and I've seen people doing through the forums that I've been in, there are people who are starting businesses right now who are turning to ChatGPT to ask questions. And I've already seen it starting to be treated kind of like an oracle, right? In the same way that people will ask Google a question, they'll go to ChatGPT and be like, what's the answer to this? And I have not seen as much open discussion of the validity of the answer. And I've also seen a lot of language that indicates that people are personifying ChatGPT and AI, in that they're treating it like you would, and this is one of the things about the names of AIs, like you name Siri, you name Alexa, you give it this human quality. And I remember reading a while back about, maybe we need to be careful with that, because you do not want to start thinking about these things like people in the traditional sense, because you need to be able to call into question the veracity of what they are producing in a way where you might think you're offending a person by doing it, but you're not going to offend a machine or a system or technology by, if I said, well, maybe question the results of what Google pops up in your search feed. It's like, okay, that should be fine, right? That should not be a problem to do.
Yeah.
Whereas, well, what makes Alexa right, or why, maybe Siri is wrong? Intuitively, I'm thinking about that in some way, or it seems like a lot of people are thinking about that as a person. And so it becomes this, you start to build an emotional relationship to the tool that can work to your detriment in terms of how much we trust the information that's providing.
Yeah, and I think it has the notoriety that Google doesn't, where, Google is, to go back to your Dewey Decimal System thing, right? Google is basically the librarian showing us the book, or the system showing us the book, right? And then you read the book, you form your own opinions. But I feel like ChatGPT is the equivalent of having, let's say, the average dude who has read all the books and remembers it very well, right? And yeah, I think you raise a good point where, like, people, because of that level of abstraction, are like, oh no, this is the guy. This is my boy. I'm really glad ChatGPT isn't named like Alfred or whatever, because I imagine that feeling would be even more. But I think all those people, this sounds like I'm putting bad juju in the air, but I think they're not going to get the success that they would like to see from that advice, depending on how they use it. Because it's my strong belief in life, in career, in content creation, in literally any element of this existence. Common advice on its own, right? The type that you'd find on Google, the type that you'd find wherever, is kind of useless, right? It's only when you take that advice and then mold it towards your context where it starts making sense. So like, or not making sense, having success as well, right? So, a lot of self-help stuff would be like, you need to do this and this and this and this. And like, they'll give you a good framework, but you knowing the framework doesn't tell you anything. You doing exactly what the self-help guy wouldn't do anything. But like, you need to take that and then actually apply the thinking towards being there, right? So I feel like if people are doing that with ChatGPT and using it as like a starting point, sure, that's great, right? And then they're doing their own thinking. But if people are like, well, ChatGPT told me to like make a video about my product, so I'm gonna make a video about my product the way ChatGPT told me to. And I think and I've seen this a lot. I've seen a lot of accountant, because I'm into marketing, I just, like, oh, what they're doing? Oh, what are they doing wrong? What do I think I would do better? And a lot of them are doing like trends, or like they do dances, or like, and these are things that I've seen in articles as common advice, right? But if you just copy and paste that idea and you don't put the critical thinking into, okay, but how would this actually look? Or like, do I want to tweak it a little bit? Then you see like what those accounts I've been talking about see, where it's like middling success, if any.
I couldn't agree more. And specifically about, the idea that context really plays an important role when receiving advice or receiving an answer. Like the ability to contextualize it and to not only understand the answer or the suggestion, but also how to arrive at that. It's a cliche thing to say, but the journey really is important, not just the destination. And I think that's true with a lot of the output that we're seeing from AI tools. To kind of answer the second part of the question, which is creativity, right? I think that adage is going to become more important, right? The journey is going to be very important, not just the destination, which is kind of the topic of a video I'm making right now, which is like being able to press a button and generate something.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to change things, and that, everybody will be able to make a Rembrandt like this, right? And a unique whatever. But with content and with different forms of media, we're kind of already there, right? Like, I don't know the stats off the top of my head. I need to still do this research, but Spotify has like over 1 million podcasts now, right? There's insane numbers. I think like hundreds of hours of original music uploaded to music platforms every day. I'm giving music examples for context because that's the world I know the best, but video is the same. Writing is the same. Writing probably has it the worst because writing is maybe the most accessible of all creative mediums digitally. And so the outcome, the end product, is already kind of like, well, we can get one of those whenever we need it. So the fact that a computer can now generate it convincingly is only a slight step above, in my mind, the fact that there's already a ton of people that are generating it convincingly.
Yeah.
So I think that ability to show the process with creativity is going to be one big part of it, not just the destination, but the whole human process of getting there, right? No matter whether you used AI to help you get there or not, capturing that authenticity of the route is going to be really important. But I think the other thing that I want to mention, because I think you touched on it too, with talking about how there you have this AI that's like the friend that's read all the books, and just getting an answer right away from that system runs the risk of presenting information and just being like, all right, cool, this is like the common knowledge answer. I think a lot of creativity, I think a lot of creativity is going to come out of disagreeing with AI and not accepting its output or questioning its output in some sense. I think that's an opportunity for people to be creative. Is like, or not even just not accepting it, but like taking the output that is clearly one way and trying to make it into something else. But the other thing that's going to be important, and I think is an aspect where people can continue to be wildly creative without a problem, is AI systems. I think a lot of them are very heavy feedback loops, right? Where you get an input and that input gets rewarded. And then like an algorithm that suggests content, all of a sudden you're only getting that style of thing because, the system's figured out that the person handing out points at the output likes that. So let's make more of it.
Yeah.
Your ability to break out of that feedback loop of, okay, cool, we've gotten enough of this, let's go in this direction, and context switch. And I know that's a very abstract way of talking about it, but the ability to break out of a certain feedback loop and jump into another one and use those to tell stories is, I think, going to be something that becomes a new skill. It's like, okay, cool, we trained an AI to do this, but then we broke it and trained it to do something else. And we, as the people that were organizing it, are now going to show you how it doesn't behave in the way that you would think. Or we use that to entertain it, to create entertainment in some way, or to create a story, or to show that at the end of the day, at least for now, these are systems that humans have built, and this is what's funny about it, right? Or this is what's entertaining about it. So using that attribute of AI systems, of deep learning systems, and machine learning structures to almost put on a performance. I know that's a very abstract way of talking about it, but I think that's also how I prefer to think about it right now, because I don't want to make super early calls on like, oh, it's clearly going to be done like this. It's like, no, we're like a good app or like a really good, like the iPhone was to smartphones. I think we're going to see something done with AI in the worlds of creativity and outside where it's like, oh crap, that's a quantum leap forward in terms of what this is capable of. And there's going to be a kind of a realized vision of like, oh, we didn't even understand the foundational elements of what we could do with this. We were kind of thinking, and we were thinking of this as a condensed yellow pages in the terms of the iPhone. It's not. It's something to go play Doodle Jump on, right? Or launch Instagram on. And I think we're going to see that with AI integrating into other things, or maybe becoming its own thing. And I want to be open to seeing that. I don't want to become really narrow and like, oh, it's going to happen in this way. I don't know.
I think you're spot on. I think there's definitely going to be a way. There's going to be a winners and losers when it comes to the use of AI. And I think your way, at least the thought processes around your way is going to be the winners, right? That's going to be those content creators or those brands who make insane campaigns that go incredibly well versus, the blogs that just pump stuff into ChatGPT and like make shitty blogs and then are like, why are people leaving? I think I really seen this week an example of that, or example of things going that way when I was telling you about the BuzzFeed firing like 15% of its writing staff because we got ChatGPT. And I don't know, it sounds, it is not a coincidence that the place on the internet that is known for the worst articles is using ChatGPT, and that is hitting their standard of article. This isn't like, Tim Ferriss isn't like, I'm gonna just turn it into ChatGPT, right? Like it's not some like known blogger who is like everyone loves their content, who like, wow, I love how he put that. It's BuzzFeed, and they are the first, at least the first big company I've seen to be like, yeah, we're gonna fire people with ChatGPT. So I can definitely see going forward there's gonna be and they might be successful, they might save a lot of money, right? Like, but in terms of objective, I guess there's no objective quality, but in terms of quality of content, quality of things people are going to put out, the way you're talking about is definitely going to be the better way forward if you want to maximize the thing you're making.
As kind of a outfield curiosity, I'm interested to see if it starts to become commonplace or even popular within certain subsections of creative groups. If like similar to like a Better Business Bureau seal on something, there's going to be like a 0% AI used. Like
that would be interesting.
It's going to become common for some creators to start slapping like a sticker on their creation that says, no AI used in the making of this, right?
I like that idea a lot.
I think there's a chance. Like, I think it becomes a thing where, in the same way that like food has the organic seal,
exactly,
not getting into the politics of like what that actually means, but just the fact that it's there in the first place.
Yeah.
It it's a value indicator to people who value that, and I think
that's good. Like, I think that's a great prediction. I think there is a very high chance that is going to happen. I think that is going to be the artistic community, like the visual arts communities. That's going to be one of their responses to the AI art. I think you're pretty spot on with that.
Interesting.
I think people are going to value that a lot.
Yeah. Do you have an area looking towards, like an industry, that you're really interested to see how AI affects it?
I don't have a specific industry, but I'm very curious to see how all industries, specifically the ones that are more AI affected, like the writers, the artists, I just want to see how they respond. Like, what is the way that you sidestep being destroyed by someone who uses AI, or like having your business disappear because other people are using AI generated stuff. That's what I'm very curious about. Like, if you were a BuzzFeed employee, like one of the persons who got fired, what could you theoretically do to make yourself unfireable when AI comes around? Like, I'm very curious to see like what that is like, because I think that more gets into things I can do for my own life, or what people can do for their lives. I think that's the more human and more interesting perspective for me. Yeah.
So, of the things that you're working on right now, what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
I think the first one is probably a very relatable one for everyone who's doing something as a side hustle is, well, one, not having enough time, but two, feeling the potential of not having enough time like disappear, right? Of like being able to acknowledge, damn, I'm in my 9 to 5 and I could be doing so much more to the thing I want to do. That's been frustrating because it feels like you're shackled, at least mentally, let's say, right? And you're watching the rest of the world go by. You're watching what could have happened in your head when I think about like, you know, I could be making. I literally thought about this today and like tried to put some numbers to it. It's like I can make like 3 or 4 videos a day, right? For all my stuff. But right now I only make 3 videos a week. That's my goal. That's all I can really manage, right?
Right.
And it's like, you know, the growth would be so much more insane on everything, right? I will have so many more stabs at the content to be like, oh, this works, this doesn't. And that's frustrating. The thing that I've been doing to fix it as much as I can has been to like try to find there's a few ways, but the first has been to try to find as many gaps as I can to make back that time, right? So it's like, you know, I'm waiting for somebody to pick me up, right? Usually that would be dead time. Or for me, that would be, I would just open YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I'm realizing more and more like that is a true waste of time. You know, like there's very little, unless like you are watching like a really good video by an insightful talker or something, that you will learn in that moment, especially not in like 5-10 minutes. Right. But I get so much more value if I just open up Notion, I open up my Notepad app, and then I write the script of a video, right? Mm-hmm. And then that makes it so much easier to sit down and make the video itself. Like because now it's like, oh, okay, the script is like halfway done. I just need to touch it up. Okay, good. And like, although it's the same amount of time, it really helps me get into the work a lot better, because, you know, after an 8-hour day, right, there's a lot screaming at you mentally in your brain to be like, let's not do work, right? Like, let's just lie down, let's sleep for a bit. But if you can just tell yourself like, like I gotta do that script, but it's halfway done. Like it's just to put the finishing touches on it. Your brain is like, okay, like we can push through. And the next thing I know, like I'm in a 3-hour editing session, like finishing something, which is great. The second thing is I have become a lot more comfortable, and I'm trying to still become a lot more comfortable with this sounds bad, but it really isn't, with lowering my perceived quality or the standard of my quality for my content. Okay. And I think, so what that means is I have stopped feeling like I need to put a lot of bells and whistles on what I do, right? Mm-hmm. You know, in the past, it was like, I need to get out, you know, this needs to have this much B-roll and these much sound effects. And like, I need to make sure this is super perfect and like, you know, make the keyframes happen this exact way and all this kind of stuff. But the more I go with it, I'm realizing, one, you know, a lot of the time that doesn't really translate to the reception of the video. Like somebody might be like, oh, I like the editing, but 9 times out of 10, a video wouldn't do well because of those bells and whistles. It might do a little better, but it wouldn't like, you know, excel because of it. So I'm realizing, one, maybe I'm putting my energy in the wrong direction. Maybe I should focus on the topic. Maybe I should focus on connecting to the audience. Maybe I should focus on like making them realize that this is the video for you, right? And the second thing is being okay to just call it, right? Like, I think every person, everyone who makes anything, gets into that mindset of like, oh, I should just add a little bit. I should add more here, there. But I've been getting more used to being like, okay, I have the next 3 hours to make this thing. It will be made within the next 3 hours. Like I'm, most of the time it's a soft deadline for me, and like I add 15 minutes, but I try my best to stay around there, because I know if I say I want to make this today, for instance, I might end up spending like a long, long time on a video that doesn't need to be that long, right? So those have been a couple of ways.
At the risk of asking you to re-answer something, looking back in recent history, like let's say the past 90 days, year, what is one piece of advice that you would give former Isaiah, past Isaiah?
Okay. I think my answer would be like the realization that got me to give the answers I just gave about like being okay with things. And that would be, you can do multiple things. I'll tell young guys this, right? It's like, you can do as many multiple projects, as many side hustles as you want. You just need to find a way to make your time efficient, right? You just need to find a way to, the more things you add, obviously you only have a finite amount of time. So the fraction is going to get smaller of how much you can commit to it. That doesn't mean it's impossible. That just means you need to optimize. And that is what I'd probably tell the young guys when it comes to content specifically. But I think life endeavors in general, when I think, content, we could think about entrepreneurship, right? But also, like exercise, right? Do I need to go to the gym for 2 hours? Or can I take my 5-minute breaks for work? Can I just do push-ups, squats, body weight exercises next to my desk? It probably adds up to the same amount, right? In a given week. But it is in a way where I am not using that big chunk in the day. Yeah, so like it's about just rethinking how you use time. It's rethinking what you need to do to accomplish something, right? And breaking down that.
I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this analogy, and there's a video I think that demonstrates this really well, of the guy that puts the rocks into the cylinder and then puts the pebbles in, and then the sand and then the water. And I think the way that you're describing time optimization and just finding more efficient ways to use smaller pieces of your day, that was what my mind went to. And I think that's, really, really solid advice. And I also would have benefited from hearing that earlier, and is a good reminder to apply that of, just don't let dead time be dead time. And you can do as much as you want, so long as you can continue to find time for the things that you want to do. But that also means that you have to acknowledge that there's a finite amount of time, and that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, my dad really inspired me to get where I am now, because like for a long time I got into this kind of binary headspace, right? Where it's like, either I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It's either I'm working at my job or I'm doing what we're doing, or like either I'm working on my job and doing what we're doing, or I'm working on my job and doing Isaiah Improves, right? Like I got very binary like that. And he was like, this is not what he said, but he was like, bruh, you dumb. But basically he was saying like, there's a lot of areas in my life where I've done multiple things and just never even clocked that I did multiple things. I just met the requirements, right? Like I did university while working a job on residence, while also being a student mentor for my like department, while like, having a girlfriend, doing all these other things, right? And those took subtle things of my time. The fractions were still there. It just didn't feel like fractions, it just felt like, oh, this is life.
Right.
And he helped me break that down. And I feel like everyone needs that nudge to be like, it's just about sacrificing certain things more intentionally. Like, do you need 2 hours of YouTube time? Maybe not.
I feel like you've summarized it really well with what you just said, which is make intentional sacrifices, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you need to make sacrifices, make them intentionally. Last, I guess, bundle question. What is something that you're really grateful, appreciative, happy you accomplished recently? And then where are some of the best ways for people to keep up with what you're doing?
I'm proud of getting a healthier relationship with video analytics. And I don't think I've told you anything about this recently, but I used to be very, and still am, very down in the dumps when a video doesn't perform as well as I think it will, or when, it doesn't get as many likes, or the views count is different. And I get into a spiral for, a couple hours, and then I'm like, bruh, like, let's get back on the horse kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that a lot of that feeling was because I didn't really know my average and like recent analytics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I was watching like, oh, this video got 3,000 views, or this video got X amount of views, right? And I have a perception of what I think my video should do to be above average or below average. And I was just, ascribing everything to that. So like I had a video on my side also, what we doing, 5 posts ago that did really well, right? It got like 5,000 views. It's a lot more than I usually get.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was subconsciously ranking every video after that to that video. But that's unfair because like that was a standout video. That's like the best video in 10 videos I've made, or the best performing one. And so what I was really proud about is I sat down. I was like, okay, let me look at the past 10 videos I've had, both on TikTok and Instagram. I'm going to go through them, take a look at them, note them down, what things I did differently. But I'm also going to take the median average of these. I'm going to take them like of their views, their likes, their tags, shares, comments, every metric that I could, watch time, all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to put it down, write it down in my journal, and refer to that whenever I release a video. And that has made it really good perspective-wise, because now, like if a video underperforms, I can go and look into, if it feels like it underperforms, that's the keyword. If it feels like it underperforms, I could look into my analytics and be like, oh, it's like underperforming like by 50 views. Like it's below my average by 50 views or like 5 views or whatever. Like I need to chill. And then I get some like really cool insights where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It got 50 less views, but it got like 200% more likes. Like that's very interesting. Like so you get a lot of cool insights, and those little instances where like you might see the comment numbers a lot more or whatever, that I'm like, it gives me such a richer view of the reception to my content, and it takes away that like woe is me, like, oh, I can't do this. This career is not for me. Like stuff that you can end up getting into. But yeah, like that's a big thing that I've kind of abstracted for life. And I showed you recently the habit tracker. Like after the picture I sent you, I went through my past habits, and I noted what my result for the month was. So I did 18 out of 30 exercise days, or I did 20 out of 30 whatever, right? Like journaling. And I've put that down on my new habit tracker. So now, like when I am doing below average in exercising, it's like, oh, okay, I actually am doing below average compared to the month. I don't have this like loose feeling of being below average. Like I can quantify it. I can see, okay, this is how much we need to get back. So
the importance of calibrating a baseline and an accurate baseline is, I agree in so many different directions with that. And it's such an important thing that can really reframe the perspective on whether you feel like you're growing or whether you feel like you're just constantly failing to hit what you should be hitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a powerful reminder to do that, with content and with other aspects of your life. So
yeah,
very cool. Well, last question is, what are some of the best ways for people to keep up with what you're doing and find you and get in touch if they want to?
Yeah, for me, for the most part, where I put out I would like to say my best stuff, my most creative stuff is on Isaiah Improves on YouTube, eventually on Instagram and TikTok too. And the whole goal of that channel is to take the lessons from my life and share them with people, share them hopefully with you, the viewer, to help you get a kickstart or a jumpstart on making those lessons applicable for your life, right? So I've gone through the thinking, I've gone through the trials and tribulations. You can get my condensed version of the advice and then use it in a perspective, in a context that works for you.
I'm constantly reminded of how much you think about certain things and how much you just dive deeply into certain topics and really try to improve your perspective on so many different domains. And, I've said this to you before, but I'll say it again. Like, our conversations have helped me learn so much about myself, have helped me learn about the world. I feel like every time we talk, I learn something new. And like, yeah, man, you are very much a heavy influencer in my life. And I appreciate you doing this.
That is it for this episode of the Create Connected podcast. If you haven't already, go down below and like and subscribe to help others find the show. If you want to continue the discussion about anything that you've just listened to, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I do my best to reply to all of them. Finally, remember that the Create Connected podcast has a companion newsletter. In that newsletter, we talk about standouts and highlights from this episode, actionable tips that you can use to improve your creative process, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Go sign up for free and get the latest episode at createconnected.com. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Peace.